Welcome to USAID's Kitchen Sink, a food loss and waste podcast. I'm your producer, Nika Larian. 30 to 40% of the food that is produced is either lost or wasted, contributing to a global food crisis with over 800 million going to bed hungry. Listen on as USAID experts speak with researchers and development professionals to explore solutions to this critical issue that demands a kitchen sink approach. When it comes to climate, food security, and food system sustainability, we have no time to waste. Thanks for tuning in to USAID's Kitchen Sink, a food loss and waste podcast. My name is Nika Larian, Senior Food Safety Advisor and producer of The Kitchen Sink. Today, I will be speaking with Vivian Maduekeh, Program Director at Partners in Food Solutions and Managing Principal of Food Health Systems Advisory. Together, we will discuss what food processing is and the role it has to play in reducing food loss and waste. We'll dive a little deeper into the context in Africa and discuss the specific challenges and opportunities for food processors on the continent to play their role in reducing food loss and waste. Welcome, Vivian. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Nika. I'm Vivian Maduekeh, and I am a Program Director at Partners in Food Solutions. I am also the Managing Partner of Food Health Systems Advisory. My background is in food science and technology and also food policy, and the bulk of my career has been spent on integrating policies and practices across food systems, climate, and nutrition. And when I say integration, I mean finding ways or solutions that could benefit climate, economic growth, but also nutrition. And right now, I'm leading a large program across 11 countries in East and West Africa, focused on certain value chains such as rice, horticulture, and animal source foods. And these are value chains that are important both for nutrition and economy on the continent, but also these are value chains that face the highest amounts of food loss and waste, up to 60%. And so my role is to see how food processing can not just support food security, but also reduce food loss and waste. So I'm eager to share a little bit more on this podcast today. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, as you alluded to, and as I mentioned in my introduction, we'll be talking about food processing and food processors during today's episode. So I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room because there are a lot of misconceptions and negative connotations with processed foods. So can you explain what food processing is, what are the benefits, and the role it can play in reducing food loss and waste?
Certainly, Nick. I'm glad you used the word misconception. So in simple terms, food processing is the transformation of raw food ingredients into edible food products that are safe, nutritious and convenient to consume. And this can range from simple processes such as drying or canning, or even complex processes such as fermentation, pasteurization, and fortification. And based on this explanation, you would see that food processing has broad benefits, both for extending the shelf life of products, but also making products palatable, right? For example, none of us can eat raw paddy rice. You need to polish that rice, mill that rice to be able to consume the food product. So food processing, when it comes to food loss and waste, can help us preserve foods for longer and reduce waste. I appreciate the fact that there are several concerns about ultra processed foods, which are usually high in salt and sugar. On this podcast, I would like to explain the distinction. There is a distinction between processing and ultra processed foods. Now, ultra processed food takes it one step further from processing, where you now start adding various commodities and additives that are far away, way far away from the original raw ingredients. So whilst there is that concern, and whilst people should be aware of the negative health issues with ultra processed foods, we shouldn't lose out on the positive benefits that food processing has for both nutrition, but also reducing food loss and waste.
Absolutely. I think um, people often overlook the fact that food processing really exists on a range. And when you think of food processing, what comes to mind are those ultra processed foods that people want to avoid and that are unhealthy and we're trying to reduce from our diets. But I think people often forget that there are a lot of foods that are technically considered processed that we like to. You mentioned fermenting. I mean, people love to
Yes.
include these kind of foods in their diets. As you said, it increase shelf life. It can prevent nutrient loss. So there are a lot of benefits to food processing, and that's one of the goals of I think of this of today's episode is to share that as I said, there's a range with food processing, and there are some definite benefits. So thank you for clearing that up. And so now that we've addressed the food processing elephant, I want to take a closer look at the African context. Can you share the unique challenges to reducing food loss and waste in Africa? And how do we get African food processors to step into their role of reducing food loss and waste?
Yeah, sure. Reducing food loss and waste is a global challenge, like we all know. Yet in Africa, the continent presents both unique challenges but also opportunities. When I use the word opportunities, I mean there is lots of potential for food processors to step into the growing demand for processed foods both locally and internationally. And so, as these markets open up, there is room for processors to process the raw diverse ingredients available on the continent. However, to enable them realize these opportunities, we need to support them with the challenges that they face, including access to capital. I know that's usually the first one because you need the right capital to procure the right technology and to scale. So, access to the right kind of financing at the moment, most of the small and medium sized companies that I have worked with find access to investments and capital as a challenge. The second one is access to the right kind of technology. For example, if you need a pasteurizer, you need the right type of pasteurizer as a food processor to help you minimize the losses that could come from spoilage. We also need, most processors also have lack of technical know-how coming from the education, but also other systemic issues such as market fragmentation. For those who have worked on the continent, they can attest to the fact that the market is quite fragmented, getting products from the farmers to the processors and then to the consumers. That disjointed market can actually pose a challenge to food loss and waste. At the same time, we have infrastructure. About 40% of most of the losses in fruits and vegetables on the continent happens during transportation. So imagine a bad road that would have typically taken 2 hours from point A to point B because of the road. It could take as much as 12 hours, 24 hours. And because these products are perishable, the bad roads can actually affect the shelf life of these products. So these are unique challenges on the continent. As much as the processors cannot control everything, there are aspects that they can control. Therefore, to get them on board, it boils down to the money. It boils down to the economic case. How can we help them see that focusing on reducing food loss and waste can help them with cost savings, can help them increase their profitability? And for me, my mantra is whatever you cannot measure, you cannot reduce. So, as part of helping them see that economic case, it means supporting them with tracking tools, helping them see how they can reduce it, providing them with technical support. So, now that they've tracked and measured, providing them with technical know-how on how to reduce the losses in their process. So for me, that's what it boils down to. Understanding that food processors have a role to play and they are incentivized when you help them see the economic case for reducing their losses.
Wow, Vivian, I love that response. You hit on so many themes that I think we reiterate throughout the podcast. You really brought a food systems approach to your response, mentioning things like we can't view things in isolation. We have to think about market leakages. We have to think about infrastructure. You mentioned making the economic case. That is something that has come up repeatedly on the podcast because, of course, money talks. And of course, you mentioned the importance of measurement. That is something that comes up quite frequently in conversations around food loss and waste. So definitely an area for further improvement and further exploration. So I appreciate you bringing those themes to top of mind. You mentioned the importance of access to capital, and alongside that, access to technology and capacity building for food processors. And it reminds me of the work that USAID is doing through our Food Loss and Waste Accelerator to partner with small and medium-sized enterprises in what we call our food loss and waste upstander countries in Southeast Asia and Southern Africa, to partner with them to provide catalytic funding to scale innovations that reduce food loss and waste, many of which involve food processing, whether that's taking previously wasted food items and upcycling that into a new product. There's a lot of drying and freezing of fruit and vegetable products. And then along with that, there's the need to create the market for those products and to raise consumer awareness of the benefits of these products and that they are available and they're safe and they're nutritious. So I know that you also work with a lot of really great partners and companies doing great work. So I'm curious if you have any case studies to share.
I have so many, but I'm going to share maybe one or two. I remember when like I told you, my background is in food science and technology. When I served as the food technology and program manager for Partners in Food Solutions, there was this dairy company in Nigeria that we were working with. And this dairy company had a fantastic commitment to reduce food losses for the local Fulani women that were producing milk. So they would usually offtake the milk from them, process it into yogurt, and then deliver to the market. Now, there was a season where they were having about 30% of the products that they sent to the market return to them. And by the time it returns to them, it would have gone through browning, changes in color and texture. And this kept happening. It didn't have an impact only on food safety, but also on their market share, right? And so when we started working with them, we helped them realize the impact of these returns on their bottom line, but also on their market dominance. We started helping them to track the returns. For every return, we did what they call root cause analysis. Now, I must preface by saying that this was a company that we initially supported to do food safety training, and they didn't take it as seriously until we helped them connect the losses to their food safety practices, to their process control, and that was where we got their attention. They were now more willing to work with me at that time as a food technologist, work with me. We helped them with their storage practices. We helped them with their pasteurization temperature, their bottling. And after working with them for about 3 months, there was a significant difference, not only in the food safety and spoilage, but also in the quality of the product, in their staff morale, on their bottom line. And so what this demonstrates is that when you bring it down to the economic case, you get their attention. I'll also use another example and this is not just with spoilage, this is helping food processors see opportunities in other products. Now, with rice processing, as we know, for some of those who process rice into white rice, there is an opportunity to utilize the husk. And so, what we are now doing is trying to look at how the rice millers can start processing brown rice. Now, brown rice has been shown to be nutritionally superior to polished white rice. Now, what this does is it provides nutrition for the consumers. It reduces the weight, what we will call the productivity or the weight per production. It increases the weight per production. So if a processor was to lose, let's say, 10% of their production or 6% of their production as the hull or the husk, we help them reduce that. And we also help them reduce the losses that could come from sending these products as non-food products. And also we help them with the market share. So for me, this is a situation where you're bundling health, impact of eating whole grains, with food loss and waste. It's a unique case study, but it's a case study that even now we are scaling through the Fortified Whole Grain Alliance, trying to see how rice millers can produce more and more brown rice with less food losses in their process. At the same time, we're also working with them, trying to see what are the various points in their processing where they are getting most of the wastage. And this can be in the polishing process, in the milling process, and we're therefore working with them to make sure that we reduce losses and get that process efficiency to as high as 60%. So that's what I'm able to share. Like I mentioned, it boils down to the economic case, and when you can help food processors see where the money is, they commit. That's what I've learned over the years.
Absolutely. I appreciate you mentioning this bundled approach. And we talk a lot about the triple wins of food loss and waste. So this ability to have positive impacts on climate, on nutrition and food security, and on economic development by reducing food loss and waste. And as you said, I think a lot of this is finding the right argument to make to your particular audience. And often with the private sector, that argument is the economic case. And I love that you brought up food safety. It's obviously very closely linked with food loss and waste. We say at USAID that safe food is saved food. So thank you for making that connection. And yeah, we've found that in a lot of our conversations, making that economic case is what really incentivizes the private sector to start making changes. I think some of the conversations I've been having recently on other episodes is what is the case to make to consumers? There's obvious an economic case to be made there. A lot of people are feeling the pain when they go into the grocery stores, that
Mhm,
the incentive is
mhm,
there to buy less, to be more intentional about what you're purchasing. But I think the consumer case is also interesting. I think there's more than the economic case that needs to be made. I think humanizing food loss and waste and bringing in that personal perspective is really key. I know the recent food waste index report got a lot of attention for the just huge amount of meals that are going to waste every single day. And I'm glad that report is getting a lot of attention, because I think some of those arguments will be compelling to consumers. But
yeah.
definitely money talks for businesses, and that applies to food processors. So I appreciate you reiterating that economic argument on today's episode and sharing some of those really great case studies. I know, Vivian, I've asked you to participate in our food loss and waste theme month on AgriLinks. So I'm hoping we can dive deeper into some more examples of some of the great work that you're doing. And I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Thank you, Nika. Thank you very much. There was a reason why we focused on what can the food processor control versus policies, right? These policies affect them, but in this episode, we're focusing on what can the food processor truly control and how can we incentivize them to take action.
Thank you for tuning in to USAID's Kitchen Sink. This podcast was produced by Nika Larian and is organized by the USAID Food Loss and Waste Community of Practice co-chairs Ahmed Kablan and Ann Vaughn. Additional thanks goes to Feed the Future, the U.S. government's Global Food Security Initiative, and the USAID Center for Nutrition.